Hey! Yo, everyone. Andrew here, bringing you another video. Today we're going to be doing our beginner's guide to the Justice League. Sorry about the glaring light that's hitting the poster, but I'm not known for my lighting. The Justice League is the granddaddy of all superhero teams in DC Comics, of which all of the teams kind of stem from, more so than the Justice Society. I know the Justice Society came first, but just didn't quite have the momentum and the pop that the Justice League did. The Justice League was so huge that other books like the Teen Titans or The Outsiders stemmed from the Justice League. Even at Marvel, the Justice League came first, and Stan Lee even said that the idea of the Fantastic Four came from the success of the Justice League. You can even credit X-Men or Avengers from the Justice League, right? It is the biggest team that DC has. And it's an incredibly unique team because where a lot of teams are teams of family, like the X-Men or the Titans, right? It's a family that comes together. The Justice League are colleagues. They're superhero colleagues. They work together, right? So I think that's kind of a unique approach that the Justice League takes. Kind of been adapted from other comic book teams too, like the Avengers are kind of like colleagues, but the Avengers also fight a lot with each other, so I don't know how much they really like each other. With all that said and put aside, the Justice League is definitely a team that I recommend people get into reading. And I got here 10 Justice League stories, graphic novels, in which I recommend that you read to get into the team. Now, a couple things before jumping into this actual list of stories I have for you. The Justice League's had so many incarnations. You've had the Justice League of America, the Justice League, the JLA, the Justice League International, Justice League Elite, Justice League Dark, Justice League Odyssey, Justice League Antarctica, Justice League Europe. Yeah, there's been a lot. Generally, the Justice League America, and JLA are all pretty much the same entity, with the others being offshoots. I'm not talking about those teams. I'm not talking about Justice League International. I'm not talking about Justice League Dark. I'm not talking about Justice League Antarctica. I'm talking about the main Justice League team. The JLA, the Justice League of America, the greatest heroes of all time. And the great thing about the Justice League, too, is although it has a lot of recurring team members that rotate in and out, like Green Arrow or Hawkman or Zatanna, it really adheres to what I call is the Rule of Seven, which I used in my What I Would Do for DC Comic video a couple videos back. And that the Justice League focuses on the Big Seven, or what they call the Big Seven of the DC Universe. Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Flash, Aquaman, Green Lantern, and typically Martian Manhunter. These are the founders of the Justice League, with the Flash being Barry Allen and Hal Jordan being Green Lantern. This has changed a bit, seeing that Cyborg has been retconned to be a founding member rather than Martian Manhunter, who is said to be the first additional member now. But the concept stays the same, right? Through almost every Justice League iteration, you're going to have some kind of facsimile that's going to have at least 4 to 7 of those members, right? It's definitely going to have the Trinity. It's going to have a Flash, maybe a Green Lantern, and then Aquaman, Cyborg, or Martian Manhunter gets shuffled in through that staple and roster. In addition to that, with the Justice League itself, the origins have been retconned a bit. Now, with everything that's going on with Doomsday Clock and Generation Zero, which may not even happen, the new DC timeline where everything counts, but does it really? We don't know what the origin of the Justice League truly is. Based off my research and what I've actually had conversations with creators like Jeff Johns, the general consensus is that the New 52 origin is still considered the origin for the Justice League. At least the canon origin. This is supported by the fact that in comics such as the current Justice League run in Rebirth, Scott Snyder's run, as well as the previous run in Rebirth, make references to Cyborg being a founding member and how the Justice League was formed, facing up against Darkseid. As well as when I talked to Jeff Johns at New York Comic Con not too long ago, I asked him, what is the current origin of the Justice League with everything going on in Rebirth, he said, still New 52. That is not changing. Now, again, I don't know if the new timeline or Generation Zero is going to change that. We don't know. But we're not here to try to figure that out. We're not trying to dig into some lore or theorizing about timelines. This isn't a timeline theory video. This isn't a Zelda timeline theory video. This is the Justice League. So, what I decided is I compiled 10 stories here for you. I am going out of order of how they were released, right? So I'm actually starting with the New 52 stuff, and then I'm going to go into the older stuff, too. There's been multiple different eras of Justice League. There's been basically the Silver Age stuff going up to the Bronze Age, and then after that you have the Justice League International, then the JLA, then the Post-Crisis, and then Post-Infinite Crisis, and finally New 52 Rebirth. So that's been basically the timeline of the Justice League. I will give you a general timeline on how things work with these comics later if you want a chronological order, but I don't think you need it. I think if you read the comics in the order in which I present them, you're going to get as much value as reading them in chronological order, if not more. Now, it's been about 6 minutes of me blabbering on. Might as well get into the video. And we're going to start at the very beginning, at least canonically it is, with Justice League Origins. This is the origin story of the Justice League that is in continuity right now. Again, going by the Rule 7, Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Flash, Barry Allen, Green Lantern, Hal Jordan, Aquaman, and Cyborg. This tells the current origin of the Justice League facing off against the cosmic level threat that is Darkseid. And it starts off quite possibly one of the two best Justice League runs, the Jeff Johns runs, with art done by the amazing, and my personal favorite artist, Jim Lee. Gorgeous book. It's a pretty quick read. It takes its time, giving everyone kind of their moment in the sunlight. And as you'll see when I go through all these books, there's going to be a focal character for most of these books. This is probably going to be the one that doesn't. It kind of does service to all the Justice Leaguers. So Justice League Origin, first thing you should pick up. Next is Justice League Throne of Atlantis. Now, we fast forward a bit in the Justice League timeline, as well as the New 52 timeline. This is a very Aquaman-centric book. This is basically a story of where Atlantis goes out and attacks Earth, right? King Urim, who is the Ocean Master, attacks the land dwellers, us surface dwellers, and Aquaman is torn between Atlantis and his role as a hero. Him and the Justice League have to work together to basically save the world. This is a great, great story, and it's definitely a highlight of the New 52 era of Justice League stories, and definitely one you should pick up. The central focal character of this is, of course, Aquaman. He's the one that everything kind of spins around. And this, if you like Aquaman, this is a great story for him, too. Busting in, we did this in the Wonder Woman video, we might as well do it in this one, Justice League Darkseid War. This is a 2-volume series. There's also a companion volume, which deals with the Justice League getting powers that were side stories. I'm not going to talk about that. That's the main story. And again, I don't want to jump too much onto this because we did in the Wonder Woman video, but basically Wonder Woman's the central character in this, with, of course, the rest of the Justice League. They face off against Darkseid and the Anti-Monitor in a clash of the Titans. There's some really great art by Jason Fadbach, and just beautiful storytelling and writing. Justice League Darkseid War, pick it up. Now we're going to jump into what I call the JLA Era. See, the Justice League, in their first iteration, eventually disbanded after the Crisis on Infinite Earths, and a new team arose with Batman and Martian Manhunter as leaders. This was the Justice League International. Now, in the Justice League International, right, some of the founding members jumped in and off here and there, but really, at the end of the day, it was a bunch of misfits, like Booster Gold, Guy Gardner, Blue Beetle, Captain Adam, people that weren't really big Justice Leaguers beforehand, or at all. This team eventually fell apart, and the Core 7 came back together as the JLA. And they did so in a story called Justice League Midsummer Nightmare. It's not really that good of a story, so you can skip it. But the actual ongoing run of JLA starts with Grant Morrison's Justice League New World Order. This is a pretty quick read. It's a $5 trade. I think it consists of 4 issues, 3 or 4 issues, and this is a beautifully done and quite possibly one of the best Justice League stories. You have the core 7 members, right? Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, Flash, Aquaman, Green Lantern. The only difference in this is Hal Jordan and Barry Allen are dead, so their replacements, Wally West and Kyle Rayner, are the Flash and Green Lantern. This does a really good job at establishing the Justice League as larger-than-life, almost Greek pantheon superheroes. That's how they're treated, and the world events that they deal with, the cosmic they deal with, are larger than life. A big step away from what Justice League International was, which was a little bit more down to earth. And it makes sense, right? The Justice League is kind of like the Greek pantheon. Superman, the most powerful, is like Zeus. Batman, who is haunted by death and greed, or death and money, is Hades. Wonder Woman is Hera, queen of the gods. You have Flash, who is the fastest man alive, like Hermes. You have Aquaman, who is like Poseidon, so on and so forth, right? There's actually, Grant Morrison give the analogies at some point. I just forget all of them. But long and short of it, Justice League New World Order is fantastic. We're going to do a couple of the JLA stories. I've done 3. But the whole entire Grant Morrison run on Justice League is just a gem through and through. Which brings me to the next story, is Justice League Rock of Ages. Now this story focuses on Flash, Green Lantern, and Aquaman more than anyone. And the long and short of it is that those 3 are kind of sent into a future in which Darkseid has won, and they have to do everything they can to make things right. That's all I'm going to tell you. I don't want to reveal too much because I think it will take away from the story. This is a very heavy story, and that is layered. There's a lot of stuff going on. So sometimes a reread helps, but it is a great story through and through with some great moments too. Justice League Rock of Ages. Coming to probably the most famous Justice League JLA story, right? Just the JLA saga. Justice League Tower of Babel. Now, this is a very Batman-focused story, and the general concept is that Batman at this point in his career has become itsy-bitsy paranoid, and he has contingency plans for all the Justice League members if something was ever to go awry. So what happens when those plans fall in the wrong hands? One of Batman's oldest villains, Ra's al Ghul, disables the Justice League using Batman's own plans. It's up to Batman to try to save the Justice League and to regroup forces to take on Ra's al Ghul. This is a really good story for Batman fans because it shows how dangerous Batman can be if left to his own devices and given prep time, and how he can just neutralize a team if he knows what to do. But on the same time, it's a really great Justice League story because it shows how the team, even when taken down by these plans, can still come together and fight as a team. And it does not leave the Justice League on good terms. It hurts them, status quo-wise. But, I mean, it's still a fantastic story. Moving on, eventually the Justice League starts to fall apart again. It happens, and the Crisis on Infinite Earths happens. Or, not the Crisis on Infinite Earths, the Infinite Crisis. After the Infinite Crisis, Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman take a year hiatus. They leave their respected cities and positions with other people. I believe Wonder Woman left it with Donna Troy as the temporary Wonder Woman. Supergirl took care of Metropolis while Superman was gone, and Batman trained Harvey Dent, who had been rehabilitated at the time, to cover Gotham, as well as some miscellaneous Batman sidekicks, right? So when the Trinity finally came back, they decided to resurrect the Justice League, but to do it right this time. What does that mean? Well, you're going to have to see. Justice League, The Tornado's Path, or Justice League of America, Tornado's Path, with fantastic art by Ed Benz and Brad Meltzer, who is known for doing a lot of novels. I actually recently read his novel, The Escape Artist, last year. Really great novel. Does a really good job at telling 2 stories. One is a very human story about the Red Tornado, who is kind of the focal character of this, but also of the lineage and history and relation that the Trinity have with each other, but as well with the Justice League. It is a great story, and should be read by all. Now we're going to be jumping out of continuity, and we're going to do a story that's set in one of the many universes of the multiverse. And although it's not technically a Justice League story, it might as well be. And that is the fantastic, amazing Justice League, or not Justice League, DC New Frontier. It's a 2-volume series, and it is fantastic. The late great amazing legend Darwin Cook did the art and also did the writing on this. And what this really does is it does its own reinterpretation of the Silver Age of superheroes. Now, as you're going to see in a minute, the Silver Age is a hard pill to swallow for new comic book readers. Really, typically, the older comic book readers can appreciate the Silver Age for what it was, because it was a little whimsical, it was a little goofy, very campy, but the Silver Age had a lot of value to it. That's where the Justice League was born. New Frontier takes the concepts of the Silver Age and run with it, and the art is so amazing. Darwin Cook no longer being with us is a terrible loss, but I think this is his greatest legacy, that and the Catwoman run, but this is just gorgeous stuff through and through. The focal point of this character is Martian Manhunter and Green Lantern, Hal Jordan, but really Martian Manhunter. And you should pick it up. Just pick it up. Now we're going to take a step back, right, for number 9. We're going to take a step back into the past. After you soaked up all this Justice League, you just drenched yourself in those comics I recommended. I recommend going back to the past and to the beginning, with Showcase Presents Justice League America Volume 1. What is the Showcase Presents series? It is a black and white collection of comics, right? So these are the comics from Mystery in Space, Brave and the Bold, and Justice League of America, which basically tell the origin, the original Justice League stories, right? It's a great value. You're paying about $16 for, oh god, that much worth of comics, so you're definitely getting your dollar worth. And there's 5 volumes here, but I'm telling you just to dip your toe into Volume 1. These are great reads if you're on break or something at work. I read mine when I was back in college, when I was working at Stop & Shop in a place called Atlantic Food Mart back in the JLA. I would take one of these and I would read 3 or so stories on a break. And these are great stories. The Silver Age, like I said, is a campy, whimsical place, but if you can wrap your head around that and enjoy for what it's worth, it's really some of these epic stories happen. So I really recommend Justice League of America Showcase Presents Volume 1. 500 page of comics, over 500 page. And they do this for a lot of things. Batman, Superman, Aquaman, Martian Manhunter, everything. World's Finest. Justice League, I believe, has 5 volumes, because it covers from the Silver Age, the early 1960s, up to the mid-1970s. And last one is not actually a Justice League story, but it is still a Justice League trade I recommend you get. And that is Justice League Hereby Elects. This is kind of a cool collection of stories, right? And the basic concept of these stories is the introduction of all the additional members of the Justice League, like Green Arrow and Zatanna and Black Lightning and Hawkman and Red Tornado, and how they joined the Justice League. So this spans over 20 years worth of stories. It's collected. I don't remember how many stories are in here. I can probably check the table of contents just to be sure. You have Green Arrow, Black Canary, Elongated Man, Red Tornado, Hawkgirl, Zatanna, and Black Lightning. This does a really good job at showing those other members of the team, while also telling great stories with the main Justice League. What I really like is in the back, it has a table of contents which tells you every Justice League team member and what order they came in and what story they came in. This is a really cool thing because it gives you kind of a roadmap of the Justice League team, their incarnations, and all the team members that came through on that. So those are the getting into Justice League, a beginner's guide to it. I recommend always that if you like a particular era, right, the JLA era starting with Grant Morrison's New World Order, going through is really good stuff. The Obsidian Age is really good. Justice for All is good. There's a lot of good stories that come out of the JLA run. And the New 52 run is just as good, in my opinion. It really does a good job at solidifying the stuff that made JLA so good and really solidifying it in the Justice League. There's a lot of other stuff I recommend for Justice League outside of comics, right? A lot of videos like Justice League Doom, Justice League Crisis on Two Earths. Those are two films that are really good. Justice League War is the New 52 film interpretation. There's also Justice League Rise of Atlantis or Throne of Atlantis, which is the movie version. So there's 4 animated films that I recommend watching. I haven't watched Justice League Dark, the Dark Side War yet. I'm going to try to watch that soon. There's obviously the live-action Justice League show that came out. Movie. But also, I think one of the best things you can get into is the Justice League and Justice League Unlimited cartoon. It is a great cartoon that really showcases a lot of the classic Justice League stories as well as some new ones. It does take some liberties with the team. It adds John Stewart as the Green Lantern rather than Kyle or Hal Jordan. A lot of you are probably saying, well, it's because he is the Green Lantern of the Justice League. Actually, before the cartoon, John Stewart never really was on the Justice League, and even after the cartoon, never really was either. John Stewart's tenure on the Justice League is actually the lowest out of any Green Lantern. I believe that Hal Jordan, Kyle Rayner, Guy Gardner, and Simon Baz, maybe even Jessica Cruz, all have had longer tenures on the Justice League than John Stewart. But that's fine. John Stewart's not really made for the Justice League. He's made for the Green Lantern Corps. And Hawkgirl also replaces Aquaman as the 7th member, which is also interesting because Hawkgirl was always a secondary character on the Justice League. And then Wally West is the Flash rather than Barry Allen. But at the time, Wally West was the Flash. So, but regardless, right, it's a fantastic show with some really great writing, fantastic acting. I think most of you guys have probably watched the show. If you haven't, you guys can hit up the DC Universe app, and it is there. As well, if you really want to get campy, you can go and watch the old Super Friends. I personally, of the Super Friends stuff, love Challenge of the Super Friends. That was really a fun show with its Hanna-Barbera, like, silly Silver Age-ness. It had the best intro of the world for a cartoon. But I'm rambling right now. There's also the Justice League New Frontier, which is obviously the animated interpretation of DC New Frontier. That's also a great video to watch. And video games, there's tons of video games, but I think Injustice Gods Among Us is one of the best video games to play if you want to get a Justice League experience, if you're cool with fighting games. But yeah, that is my list for the Justice League. There's a lot of other stories. The JLA run, Justice League Earth 3, all these different stories that you can tell and read, but that's where I recommend starting. As always, thank you very much for watching. Follow me on Instagram, follow me on Facebook, follow me on Twitter, follow me on TikTok. And if you want to throw a couple coins this way, there is that Patreon you can throw down. I said it in my last video, I'm going to try to rework my Patreon and make it a little bit more feasible and stuff that you guys will enjoy. I've been getting a couple requests to do some live videos, and I will be doing a live video some point this week coming up. I just don't know what day. I'm going to try to figure that out. How about I'll make an announcement video to get you guys the right times to do a live video. But I've done them before. They're fun, and I wouldn't mind doing another one. So with that said, this is Andrew saying peace out for now.